great day today. What fabulous information we're getting. So this session is business innovation. It's really a theme that you've heard about a lot today. It's kind of been woven into the topics that we've discussed. But what we're really going to try to drill into is a big question. And the big question is, what do we mean by circular economy business innovation? That's what we're going to delve into in this session. How do we define it? How do we accelerate it within Canada? So transitioning to a circular economy, as all of you know, is really a challenge. But it's also a very big opportunity that we need to be seizing. There's a lot of global thought leaders that have really embraced this concept, like the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, RAP UK, who we are very lucky to have in our audience today, and we've been inspired by what they've had to say. These groups, these thought leaders, really seem to feel that circular economy has this great potential to really reorganize our system, production and consumption in the global economy. So we need to take this seriously. But these systems are very ingrained. They change at this scale not easily. So we need to really look at the opportunity that we have to look to businesses who are at the heart of this transformation. And the transformation is about the delivery of goods and services under a circular economy in a way that at the end of the day eliminates waste and keeps materials and resources circulating at their highest utility and value. That's what we're really looking for. So if everybody can just help me to welcome, we're going to have Francis Edmonds with HP Canada, Angela Hamilton with QUUPE, and Mikhail Mataro with Cascades. So we are going to jump into the questions now. And I think the first one, the one that quickly started to jump up near the top, is the concept of durability. Has to play a role in this. And sorry, Francis, I know the example that gets used actually is printers. So just in terms of context, printers used to be a lot more expensive, but they lasted a lot longer. So can we just hear from all of you on the role that you see durability, which is obviously related to reduced consumption, plays in this whole piece of circular economy? You want to start, Martin?
A couple of quick points. One thing that's going on within this standards work within the Commission is a standard looking at exactly durability. So that's a detailed point. What we found, I'd respond to this through our repair cafe, is a slightly lateral link to this, is emotional attachment to products. What we have is a number of products that come back, furniture and a range of other products, where there is an emotional attachment to the product. And literally when the product is repaired or in a furniture sense refurbished, people almost start crying because it's repairing a memory. So there's some emotional attachment with certain types of products. So design for durability is one of the circular strategies that are available to the designer, but that will be dependent on the product, its own goals, etc., etc.
Very interesting, thank you. Francis, I'm sure you have insight into this for sure.
Yeah, so it's about reinventing the economy actually, because if you're going to build a more durable product, yet your business model relies on selling boxes, how do you make that transition? And I think for many companies, we can see the goal of a low carbon economy, but getting there is the issue, and staying in business while you get there. So I think, which is why I default back to procurement again, where our customers start to buy more diligently and put some of those requirements in place, and business is very good at responding to what customers want.
Okay, so create the demand. Excellent. Angela, obviously your business is key in this.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, I mentioned earlier about wanting to divert things from landfills. So there's a statistic a lot of you probably have heard where when you buy a cordless drill, it's in operation for 15 minutes until it ends up in the landfill. So the reason that a platform like ours is so important is because we encourage people to either not buy the cheap thing that they're only going to use once because they know they can get it from someone in their neighborhood, or if they know they're going to use it a lot, buy the most expensive one that's going to last years.
Excellent, thanks. Mikhail.
And I would say from a durability standpoint, it's interesting for us because, again, we're not always dealing with a core product that's going to get reused in the open marketplace. But what we're looking at really is, as materials are coming through our facilities, again, having access out. Oh, I'm
Nope,
back.
you're good.
Having access to that full supply chain allows us to have materials entering our facilities that we can analyze and call brand owners about and talk to them about their packaging or what they're putting on their products, and work with the Cascades R&D team to make more efficient products or products that can be reused more times through the cycle, or more importantly, actually captured once it enters our facility, because that's a big issue that we have is recyclable materials, brand owners making good decisions, but once it truly gets to a recycling facility, it's hard to capture materials or have them segregated. So we're working with brand owners on that.
Great, thank you. We're going to go to Toronto now for the next couple of questions. So, Katruja, I see you're there. Can you field a couple of questions for us?
Sure. So this is a question for Francis. How do you design items to have no known end of life when technology changes so quickly that items could be repaired, quickly become obsolete?
Great question. So that's actually a commercial product, so it's not in the consumer marketplace, and it's the kind of product that's a multi-million-dollar product, and it's just so big. It was very difficult to see from the picture the size of that product, but it's a commercial printing product. So you actually don't want to be able to take that back because it's too big to move. So it's a different category of products, I would say, and for a company like HP that's in so many different categories, from the mini handheld printer all the way through to something of that size, you start at the big end and work your way back down. But again, it comes back down to design for repairability, which is something we're scoring pretty high marks on, making your repair manuals available, but designing at the front end, and then when you do take it back, of course, making sure it can be recycled properly.
Great, thanks. Yeah, another one, Katruja?
Yes. So what are some ways that companies currently do or could communicate and collaborate to build a circular economy? So for instance, like material exchange platforms. Are there any other sort of examples of how circular economy can be built? Like Michaela mentioned, there are circular companies, but how do we build up the circular economy?
Okay, so this question is more about collaboration. Do you want to start, Mikhail?
Yeah, and I think one of the interesting things about the styrofoam tray, again, we've identified that there's a problem, and volume is king when it comes to being able to collect or process any type of recyclable. So Cascades, on our own, we produce this tray. It's in every retailer across Canada, but we alone don't have enough volume to justify the infrastructure across Canada. So we're working now with CPIA and a North American consortium that's been built on styrofoam to really understand, as an industry, manufacturing, producing, how are we coming together and going to identify what the benefits are of recycling it and placing the investment on the infrastructure, or is there no benefit? But at the end of the day, instead of just jumping to a ban, we want to analyze the entire situation at all aspects of the supply chain and make sure we're making the right decision moving forward. So that's something that we've been involved in, which has been, again, a very eye-opening experience.
Does anybody else want to wade in on the role that collaboration can play in this? Martin?
Yeah, I mean, the acoustics didn't quite hear the detail of the question, but one thing that struck me in mind is an example you have in Canada, which is you may not know about it, I don't know, you may do, the Burnside Industrial Park in Halifax, in Nova Scotia, which is a brilliant example of not the classic industrial symbiosis model from Kallenborg, but it's a big traditional trading estate where my understanding is what's happened is there's almost catalysts have been set up to try and create those relationships in terms of one person's waste is another person's input. So it's again starting to think about how you recalibrate the system, thinking more on a systems basis, looking at those connectors. So it's designing the system.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, we'll go on then. There's a very interesting question up here. I think that I'm interested to hear your perspective. This whole movement towards more online purchasing. You know, when we're seeing the actual, some of the large retailers, their physical locations, like that type of retailer going out of business and moving more towards Amazon and companies like that. So what role do you guys see that playing in the circular economy? Is that part of the innovation, or is it just a change?
It has some very interesting impacts on our retail industry per se, for sure. And if you look at the life cycle assessment of whether it's better for people to go to the store or have it delivered, interesting data. I'll just leave it at that.
Okay. You guys must have
Yeah,
comments.
I mean, for us, we think about delivery a lot and like
Right.
finding ways to, make things as convenient as possible for our users, because we know that we're asking for a behavior change. So I think we're thinking about like, how do we get things into people's hands in as easy as way as possible, while keeping those legacy store ideas in mind as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Because right now, I believe in your system, people go right to the thing they're going to rent, right?
They can, so they can arrange pickup, but we also do offer delivery. It's something that we're kind of testing out to see whether or not people actually want it. They say that they want it, but we'll see whether or not it becomes an issue of needing to just be close by with the people that are renting stuff.
And Mikhail, I don't think this really affects your business that much, but or does it?
I would say it can to a certain degree. It's going to definitely impact collection points of materials, so if more materials are being obviously delivered to households, the municipal programs really end up picking up. But on the other side, when we look at the way that e-tailers are moving and the packaging that they're using, that's the real question that we have is, are the right decisions going to be made to make a change? So if a large e-tailer decides that stewardship costs are increasing, or EPR costs are now involved, and all of a sudden cardboard's too expensive to send their materials in, and they switch to just shipping in plastic containers, are we okay with that? Or are we going to have to analyze that situation and understand the impact that that's going to have? So again, these are the conversations, the collaboration between not just an independent business making a decision on the financial side, but looking at the impact that could have on the system as a whole.
And Martin, I know you must have looked at this because this is a global phenomenon.
Well, just two quick responses on that. Back in 1994, when I launched an ebook company, which I did, we looked at the comparison between a traditional publisher and an ebook book in terms of downloading stuff, and it's complex. And much depends about the variables, and we haven't got time to go into that. So it's a very complex area, the comparison, in terms of physical, purchasing, how far you drive, etc., what's your bandwidth, etc. So very complex. But the other thing I'd like to sort of stretch it a little bit into is, particularly in the repair area, is this access to information online now. And basically what you're seeing is companies like iFixit, who I know HP are collaborating with, they now, through their diagnostics, if you like, they now have information on about 34,000, the repairs on it, 34,000 products, 9,000 individual products. So they know certain companies' laptops, that they know exactly what the main challenge with that laptop is. So it's also, apart from transaction, it's access to information on what you're going to do with it.
Right, thank you, that's great. One of the questions that had come up, and I'm curious if you guys have a perspective on this, because education is so important, are we keeping up with this in terms of educating people in places like universities and colleges as well? Are our educational institutions actually embracing this concept and teaching it? Frances?
So thank you for whoever asked that question and supported it. With a few notable exceptions, I would say, generally speaking, we are not preparing the 250,000 kids who graduate every year from our higher education institutions. And HP and WWF have actually just launched a pilot to tackle this, where we're trying to empower students, but also profs and whoever else wants to step up to this, to actually change the way we teach. And the product that comes out of higher education, being better able to understand the interconnectedness and the fact that it's an economy, not just the environment department that teaches that stuff. So I think we've got a long way to go, and this program, hopefully the pilot ends in April, Living Planet at Campus, you can all go check it out. We'll launch in September. It's a coalition of the willing, because HP and WWF can't do this by ourselves, we need lots of help, so I'd encourage any of you who want to get involved in this to reach out to myself or WWF, and we'll bring you in.
Martin, how about in the UK? Is it any better there?
It's patchy to some extent. You have some organisations that are taking leadership on sustainability education. I think Plymouth is one of those in the curriculum. But there are a lot of challenges, and I also had a role for a while where I was heading up sustainability, working with our estates department across the university, which meant I was looking at curriculum issues. And one of the wins was to get the Vice Chancellor agree to get through academic board, which is a power structure, to get sustainability, at least being taught in the curriculum. However, there's still issues about enforcement. Quite the word is enforcement, but how you ensure people are doing that when they don't have the right knowledge, when it's not a key requirement for them. And I'd say just lastly, EMF has done a very good job in terms of getting the top technical universities involved in sponsoring a program there. But it's not just about the elite universities, it's further down. And I'd say the other key thing is, having tried to bring this into a creative environment, although I have a business background, it's getting the approach right. So what I'm doing with creative students is not lecturing. So I've set up sort of hackathons and things like that with the fishing nets and ropes, where you've got a creative process going on to generate the ideas. Then the nets are delivered. They then are able to go off to workshops and make prototypes. So I've run about 2 or 3 of these hackathons. The key thing with designers is, unlike business students and others, you'll get a product because they can make stuff.
Great. Okay. Next question then, let's talk, because obviously for business, profitability is very important. Let's talk about the business case and how you support the business case for circular economy, because that's a very key part of the message. Mikhail, can you comment on that?
It's exciting for us, to be honest, because from a Cascade Zinc standpoint, this has been our business since the beginning. We're not a waste company. We're not dealing with garbage. We're looking at everything as discarded material and trying to find a home or an market for it. So the more circular we get as an economy, the better it's going to be for our organization, because we're going to have those end markets. And when you look at actual analysis with a customer and figuring out the inputs and what they're bringing into their facilities, and we're going as far as working with customers and their purchasing departments to talk about what are they procuring into their facilities and how do they make slight changes, or what are the 5 questions that they need to ask, because there is a big financial impact for them by reducing the amount of waste entering their facility and the associated costs with that. So I think from a micro level with our specific customers in the marketplace, there's a huge opportunity. And when we look at it from a national perspective, from our business or our business's perspective, it is really an exciting opportunity to drive that change.
Yeah,
Angela, thank you.
I would say for us too, I think there's a real opportunity there for businesses to tap into a secondary income stream. So it's somewhat similar to what I was talking about earlier, where we have small business partners who don't necessarily have anything to do with rentals in their kind of traditional space, and they're able to kind of draw value out of stuff that otherwise just sits around. And I think that's really true in many different industries, where lots of businesses that have like tons of great inventory that 95% of the time isn't really doing much of anything. So finding new ways to extract value from that, I think, would be key.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
I'm just going to chip in about assuring the volume of material you need. Like if in a dwindling resource-constrained world, we need to assure supply to be able to continue to run our business. So, especially in the size of volume that we have. So it's about smart business.
Great, thank you.
2 points. Firstly, getting through what I term the middle layer of granite. You can have high-level rhetoric from senior management, and you can have bottom-up activity, but it's getting through that middle management, the people that drive the business, the implementation stage. So the lessons learned from broader sustainability issues is in providing the financial incentives to the leaders of the business units, which and hardwire it into how they're measured, their KPIs, etc., etc. The second point is getting the language right. Something going back into history around sustainability stuff, which it's this idea developed by Arthur D. Little, the consultants, is you will hit a green wall if you sell projects on sustainability, internal projects on sustainability language only. You have to translate it into the benefits to marketing, procurement, They need to understand your message and how it's going to benefit them as well as their organization and their own agendas.
Excellent. Martin, can you just, because you talked a bit in your presentation about terminology, and I know one of the questions that came up with this whole thing, and I think we all struggle with this, that is circular economy just calling what we've always done a different name? And then we get the issue of circular economy versus zero waste, which we deal with at the council. So the whole concept of zero waste, circular economy, are they supportive? Are they at odds? Is there a danger in them sort of competing?
I'd firstly say buy or find a way to get hold of the BS 8001 because we go through all the background on this. The first point of this is resource efficiency, resource productivity is not a new discussion. And many countries, particularly Japan, Germany, some of the Scandinavian countries, and to a certain extent Canada, have been pushing at this agenda for a long time. The terminology circular economy and more of a critical mass is new. So, elements of the discussion are not new. You can argue it's a rebranding. You can argue that, but some are further arguing it's a totally new approach to business. It replaces sustainability, and a lot of those people seem to be based in the Netherlands at the moment. I don't subscribe to that. I see circular economy as part of a broader sustainability approach, and one should keep that holistic view. So I've forgotten the rest of your question, so I think...
No, I think that really caught it, the whole idea that it's just more holistic. What about you Mikhail, from a business point of view, zero waste versus circular economy?
I think you made the point. Are we redefining something that has already been discussed so obviously? Year over year we talk about different trends or different fads within the business, and there are some cases, not necessarily saying zero waste, the circular economy is one of those cases, but we couldn't solve for it in that sense, so now we have transitioned to a new name and we're all going to rally behind that and make the change. Either way we look at it, at the end of the day, it's systemic change that needs to occur in order to be successful. So called zero waste, called circular economy, we can call it whatever we want. It's, are we ready to tackle it truthfully, or put the bandage on a couple of the symptoms and then find a new problem later on? So that's where we're at right now. We really need that commitment to come together to make that happen and solve the problem, stop solving the symptoms.
Great, thanks. You had something to add, Martin?
Yeah, it's also separating out goals and processes. So the goal, an aspirational goal, whether it's achievable may be zero waste, but it's an aspiration, and I've seen that in Japanese factories. The Matsushita Eco-Technology has that, there. So it's something in mind to get you thinking. I'd say the other key thing that's perhaps different is it is this systemic approach. It's looking at the models that Philips have got and HP have got and trying to start to think through the different levels, where maybe materials recycling is maybe not so good for the business at the end, but materials recycling is at the end. What else can you do to extend the value of materials in the system?
Right, thanks. I think we're just about ready to wrap up, so I just want to do quickly one more question and start with you, Francis. This idea of, are we, some of the products that we're making, like I'm thinking of the cartridges from pop bottles, for example, is that really circular economy, or is that just delaying end of life? And I think it was also some of the examples you had, Martin, like, making swimsuits from nets and that sort of thing. So Francis?
Actually, no, that plastic can keep going round and round. It's not like paper that degrades over time, so I would call it, if we had every cartridge back, then it would be truly circular. We have to add in plastics from other sources like drinking water bottles or in fact clothes hangers for the other plastics chemistry.
Okay.
But yeah, they can keep going round and round. We just need more customers to bring more back to us.
Okay, thank you. Angela, maybe you can just comment as we wrap up on the role that you say the small startup playing in this whole equation.
Well, I think it's probably just a role of kind of pushing boundaries a little bit. So Martin was talking earlier about getting through that kind of middle layer of granite. And I know to adopt a program like ours or a platform like ours within the context of sort of a very big enterprise may be tough, but I think it's going to be important. So I think it's crucial to keep having those conversations. And if people kind of get involved with this in their personal life, maybe they bring it forward into the business setting and it becomes a little more accepted and a little less, kind of strange and unattainable.
Thank you. Thank you so much, all of you. Please help me to thank these speakers. What a fabulous session. Thank you very much.